Okay, my mic is on. You want to test your audio? All right.
Welcome to the audio.
Background sounds fixed, right, Steven? All right, and chat is up. All right, my camera's gonna be a little bit shaky. I changed things around on my desk a little bit. I got this new like circular light thingy, and every time I take it on and off of my desk, it just requires readjusting. But I have a little level thing on top of my camera to make sure that the camera's level. It's off by a little bit, but it's there. I'm a weird person. Alright, it looks like everything's going. Sounds good. Preempt is right. Nice. Alright, so we're trying to... Echo is really, really bad. There's an echo going on, eh? I'm wondering why. Oh, there is an echo going on. Let's see if I can change that. Hello?
Test, echo test.
Yeah, is the echo better? It looks like it should be the microphone off of my headset, but small echo. Sound like you're in a small room. Alex, say something?
Saying something.
My sounds better. But...
Yeah. Who sounds like they're in a small room? That would also help us if it's me or Sid. More details. More.
Yes. Explain yourself.
Sid, you sound better.
Oh, good. It's good to know I didn't sound worse. Both of you are echoing really badly. That's weird.
Will I ever have a reverb? Interesting.
Okay, say something, Alex.
Something, Alex.
Okay.
Am I reverbing now?
I've got no echo here. Jeffrey's saying it doesn't have an echo. I'm wondering if it's just on Steve-O's side, because he's the only one who seems to be having an echo. Is there something wrong with YouTube?
So me listening to it, you sound fine.
All right, yeah. Devin saying sounds good to them.
Yeah, but me listen to YouTube, I guess.
Ooh, girl special listening on YouTube.
No, YouTube's fine too.
Okay. All right, so we proceed onwards and upwards.
Wait, Steve, are you saying you still hear reverb?
Yeah, I'd like to know. Poo tube. Language, people, language. So you know how in Avengers when they have that moment when Captain America calls everyone out, it's like language, and everyone thinks Captain America's old. I'm like, I want to be like that. That's who I want to be like. I want to be that old man that calls people out on language.
So you want to be the old man, or you want to be like an old man?
Both.
Okay. Everything sounds good now. Steve-O, just you're the last one. Does it sound good for you? Otherwise, we can continue.
All right. While all that's kind of happening and we're pending on things, we're also... I'm working on just creating a list of questions that I'm going to be using, a bit like an interview structure, a bit of just an open dialogue between me and Alex. But if there are questions that are in your mind that you want to throw out to the both of us as a grenade and just blow up the conversation, please send those. I love to talk about things that you actually care about. Otherwise, we're just going to be talking about random game design things, random industry things. I am going to try to keep things more Genesis focused, but we may talk about the industry as a whole, different games, different topics, and go from there. So if you have any questions, leave them in chat. I do have the chat window open so I can see that happening. Otherwise, you ready to just jump into it?
I'm ready.
All right, so this is my first big question because this is one of the things that changed my life. And it's going to be more just you telling a story. But I know before jumping onto Genesis, you did some let's call it casual game design stuff. You made your own cards for different games. You made your own fan set for Genesis.
Yes.
But has anything changed between doing it casually and then jumping on and working with me doing it?
Yeah, of course. I have this terrible boss.
Obviously.
Always around. He's around. He has opinions about stuff.
Vetoing all your good ideas.
No, actually, I'll say that. You did. I wouldn't say you vetoed a lot of ideas. I was most surprised that when the first line of design came around, you went, "We can make these stronger," and I went, "What? What?"
That's fair. That's fair.
I was very, very surprised. There was a lot of cards like, "Oh, well, we could just give this buff here. We could give this buff here," and I'm like, "Sid, you're crazy. What are you doing, man?" But most of them work out fine, so you were right. And then I think the ones that you would veto are more the ones that you're like, I don't like that style of thing in the game. It's more usually when you would veto one.
That's fair. Yeah, I am very much of a test first before jumping into action, but there are just certain things out there that I'm just like, nah, I can't let this happen in Genesis. Stevo, if you're still having issues with the echo, okay. Oh, had it running on both Discord and YouTube caused the echo, so it was just a mistake on his end. All right, that's good to know. That was very concerning.
To watch us 2 times. Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay, so one of the things that happened to me the most, the more I dug into the process of becoming a game designer and formalizing my skill set, is that my process in playing other games has changed. Has it changed at all for you? Like when you play other games, do you see things differently now?
I'm gonna say no.
No?
It hasn't changed for me yet. No.
All right.
I'm gonna say maybe that's because I'm known because Darren is in the chat, Steve's in the chat. When it comes to board games and stuff like that, when we play after Sunday Night Genesis, because we usually play board games right after, I'm just always usually on the top of my tactical game at all times. So so I guess the breakdown will be when I start breaking down a game past that. So I stop looking to win and like how was this designed, viewing it from that point.
Yeah.
I think when I go into a game, I'm almost always tactical focused.
Yeah. I think a big thing for me is like whenever I play any other game, I always have 2 mindsets. One is why did they do the design decisions the way they did it? And the other is how would I improve it if I were to redo it, right? And it's a terrible situation because every time I play any game, so I played Pokemon Unite on the phone, and it's kind of that 5v5 League of Legends type of thing.
Yeah.
And every moment I was playing it, I just kept on breaking it down, being like, why did they design it this way? Why did they do that? Eventually it got to a point where I played it for, I think I put in 15 hours or so, and I was like, I can't play this anymore because there's so many design decisions I don't like. I can't get out of that mindset anymore.
I was so close to downloading that game, and I was like, no.
Okay. Yeah, so I it's also an assignment I'll give to you and I'll give to anyone who's watching as a game designer. Next time you play a game, take a step back and think of it from the design perspective. Think about questions like, I don't know, why did they make the pieces the way they did? Why did they use the pieces that they did? It's a wonderful skill to have, but it also ruins things for you. Yeah, like, have you ever tried to redesign a board game? Like, you played it, you're like, okay, they had a good start, but let me do it myself?
Not a full design. There would be, like, rule changes. Like, minor rule changes here and there. We'll just be like... And then most of the time, we just started normally doing it until someone new came to play the game. They're like, that's not the rules. And we're like, what do you mean? What do you want about? And we're like, oh, yeah, those aren't the rules. One of Clad's favorite game, I know we play Tyrants of the Underdark. We had a lot of custom rules for a while, and we just assumed that those were the rules because we've been playing it for so long.
Yeah, I know my family got that way with President. We
Yeah.
played President for so long with our house rules that when I got to high school and actually made other friends and I played it with them, I was like, "That's not how you play the game. That's not how you play the game at all." And yeah,
Natural one of that is Monopoly. When you play
Yes.
Monopoly with people, there's so many weird rules that
Yeah.
people call out, and I'm like, no. Why would people give you money for going to free parking? And then people also, and this is why I usually say to them, there's a reason why your Monopoly games go on forever, is because you're giving extra resources in the middle of the game. The whole point is you have your most money is usually at the start, and everybody's money goes down as they buy stuff, and it gets distributed well until you're out. Adding random money into the game, your game keeps going. That's good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, all right, bringing it back to Genesis. Do you think there are things that? What are some of the things you wish you could have redesigned? I think we talked about this, or we've gone through something similar
I've
like
talked
this.
about But I have a question stuck in my
Okay.
mind now.
All right,
Now
yeah,
that you
go
brought-
for it.
Now that I'm like, what would I bring from Monopoly to Genesis? This is a interesting question. How and what can you take from a game like Monopoly and bring it to Genesis?
So, one thing I like about Monopoly is that and this is the same with a lot of those type of games, but the idea of you have to build your strategy as you play, and every time you are presented situations, then you create a strategy. Where in TCGs, you have your hand, and yes, you're drawing a new card every single turn, but at the same time, you're not presented with a new moment to like recalibrate your strategy. So if I were to, one thing that I would translate over is if Genesis had something that was like, kind of like Overpower, if you ever played that, where the round ends when you have no cards in your hand, and then you start a new a round by drawing a certain amount of cards.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have this new set of options, and you have to decide from that point, what do you do? What are your new situations that you tackle at this point? And everything changes going from there.
So when I was building the D&D RPG, I kept condensing down, but I had a lot more abilities, which included like knowledge, which was your hand size, included speed, which increased the amount of movement you could have.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are aspects that that would work within Genesis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go way out there. I figured out my Monopoly and how it's gonna work with Genesis. So you're gonna have a Monopoly board beside your Genesis board players. Now you no longer have a deck. I know this sounds crazy. How do you pay for things? Don't worry about that. Blowing your mind. Now all your deck is gonna go around the Monopoly board. Now when you land on the spot on the Monopoly board, you now have that card and you may play it. And that is your now new Genesis Monopoly. Now maybe there's a buying system whereas the aura is to buy the card, but you don't have to pay the cost to play the card. There you go. Full Genesis Monopoly. Done.
What are so Genesis in a lot of ways is designed bottom up. It's a lot of mechanic and then creating flavor that works with that mechanic. What are some of the things that you think should have been designed top down, like flavor first, and then the mechanics, forcing the mechanics to make that work?
I don't know if I have an obvious answer for this. Because in order for me to have an answer, I need to know which flavor needed to be added in to go top down from first.
Okay, let's start with a few of them. How about aerial and flight?
So I'm gonna go further than that, including that in there. It's like aerial, flight, spectral. Because when you compare spectral and aerial, it's the same thing except range attacks for aerial. So when you compare the two,
Spectral.
you rarely hear people complain about spectral. But the difference there is it's played on a card that is seen more.
Yeah.
Flight is interesting because it's a good mechanic, but from a flavor perspective, it confuses a lot of people because you're both down at the floor to block bodies from coming through, but then you're also up whenever you need to at the same time. I guess that's usually the aerial flight combo together. But I think more design space wise, the issue was that creatures with aerial everything else designed required range or cast in order to hurt them. It more hurt the design space than flavor, I think.
Yeah. There definitely a lot of things that I would go back and redesign. Flight and aerial, or I think a big thing with Spectral is the moment you throw that onto a summon that can actually create a win condition, then I think people will complain about it.
Yeah.
They're complaining about it a lot. But Malevolent Spirit, unfortunately, it doesn't have a win condition. It's still a good card. It should still see some play, but it really doesn't. Again, it comes down to, like, I talk about this in my vlogs, where it's like anything 5G or higher, if it's not directly winning you the game, it better be really, really good. And Malevolent Spirit, it's just not in that boat right away.
I thought of another flavor thing to do with Flight. An issue with Flight is weirdly its terminology. Like, you can move onto an occupied spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That specifically doesn't have anything to do with Flight itself. Mm-hmm. Like, I could have a small monster and it could occupy the same spot, but I can't give it Flight because that just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
There's a bit of word issue there.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that I think whenever we're given the opportunity to recalibrate some of these mechanics, I think we'll go back and look at them again. Steven says, if Flight was named something like Agile, may enter occupied spots, would that have alleviated some of the confusion? Yeah. I definitely think there could have been better ways to name Flight, and I think there's better ways to word what Flight does. Yeah. I think the big issue was the game. We talk about this a lot. Like, we borrow mechanics from other games we've played in the past, and definitely one that we borrow from is from Magic. But the mechanics in Magic don't work the same way they do in Genesis, even though you think they're very similar. There's so much that changes going between those two games that carrying Flight and Haste into Magic, turning them into Aerial and Blitz, they're really good.
Well, here's a weird one. Because we had to do this for any summons with Flight and Aerial. They need to forcefully, we had to add on the range attack subtext onto their attack.
Yeah.
Do you think that was the right choice? Or should we have just had a text that said, if you have Flight, you can hit Aerial type thing in that Aerial sort of box? At the end of the day, I know the answer would be, we probably don't have enough space for keep adding words onto Aerial. Yeah. But it's more of the concept. Or should there be flying creatures that can't hit other flying creatures?
So if we look at the original two creatures...
I can't hear you.
What happened? Can you not hear me anymore?
Say something?
Hello?
I have lost Sid.
Oh no! What happened?
I wonder if everybody else can hear Sid.
Yeah, how's this?
Somebody in the chat tell me if they can hear Sid or if it's just me.
Who can you hear? Are you just able to hear me or Alex or what's happening? According to OBS, you should be able to hear both of us. I can hear Alex, and he can't hear me, so that's super weird. They can hear both of us, so this is awkward. Alex is gonna have to go figure things out. Technical difficulties. I really need to get OBS loading screen for that. Ah, you're back.
Apparently, my headphones slightly got pulled out of the socket.
So the funny part is they could hear both of us perfectly fine. It was just you. It was only you. You were the problem. So if I could go back and redesign that. So if we look at the original two creatures that had Flight and Aerial, Death's Companion and Angel. Angel had the giant spear, and that was my concept. She would throw the spear, and that's what gave her the range. And then Death's Companion had this giant scythe and could attack. And then it just started falling apart. Everything just started falling apart when we went into later sets. Ideally, if I were to go back and do anything, I'd just get rid of Aerial. Just get rid of Aerial as a mechanic and just have Flight. Because I think Flight as a concept, we could have several mechanics that do a very similar thing.
Yeah.
And call them, like, you could have Flight for things that are in the air. You could have Tiny for things that are really small. And then you could have Agile or something else. But I think more mechanics that allowed things to get onto the same spot would make cards like the bottom tier meteorite more reasonable.
Okay,
So I think having obstacles and having cards that can get through those obstacles are really, really cool, and we should have had a lot more of that. But aerial, things that are defensive, are really difficult to put into the game, and that's what we're experiencing. And then the other side to it is things that are going to blitz, things that are offensive when your opponent can't predict them are also challenging because of because you choose who the defender is.
Yeah.
Unlike in Magic or many other games, when your opponent gets to choose who's blocking, then these kind of quick attacks don't matter as much. But in Genesis, it does matter because your opponent doesn't get to choose who defends. You are choosing who you're attacking. So now my question is, outside of Baruch being an actual summon, like having 5 health, there isn't much of a difference between Baruch and, let's say, a card that just dealt 4 damage to a target in the same spot, right? Because you have Blitz, it can trigger at the same time. So the big thing is the fact that it's a body and it can persist, right? So Blitz summons that said, it has 1 health and decays, or it says sacrifice at the end of the round. Neither of those you think would be very good, or would they're just equivalent to spells?
So they're equivalent to spells, but I think your opponent probably has more ways to react to them. Because now it's a spell that has health, but maybe it dies at the end of the turn. So your opponent can kill it. So there's more reaction there from the opponent. It doesn't necessarily make it unplayable. I think there is space and play for that. I definitely do. Yeah, that's pretty much where that. Well, I have a question for you about Blitz. Have you ever thought about having, rather than having it be a whole trigger on a card, having it just been Blitz summon, and it was just a summon that entered the arena without a token on it? Now, there's a huge reason to have the Blitz, the trigger on there, because now there is a slight weakness to it where the opponent gets that small chance to respond if you put someone in front of them.
Yeah. Because technically, if a Baruch hits a table and you Thunderstruck it in response to Blitz, then it dies without having the exert counter removed. Oh, yeah, you know what? There is actually a very good reason to do it, like you're saying, Blitz summon, because that's what we see in quick beckon, right? Yeah. Quick beckon, Blitz beckon, then you can have quick Blitz beckon, and it would all just consume the same amount of space. You know what? That's not bad coding-wise. I like having them as separate functions, but no, there's nothing inherently wrong with doing it that way. Like you said, it would make them stronger. Yeah. But functionally, it makes sense. Yeah. It's just a parameter you're passing into the Blitz mechanic. Things to think about. Baruch versus Gelada Baboon. Yes. Does the action speed... Do you think having action speed Blitz counters out how powerful Blitz is enough that if we were to make new summons with Blitz and gave them action, would they be fair? It
makes them more fair. So the reason why we almost talked about this, you play the Baruch, and it's equivalent to a spell. Yeah. But on turn 2, if you're going first, or even if the Baruch gets another turn, now it's equivalent to 2 spells. Yeah. The Baboon, turn 1, it smacks for 3. If your opponent goes in between this, they can double move and the Baboon can't hit them.
Yeah.
So there's a safety valve automatically in it.
Yeah. That's something to explore. I think when it comes to Blitz, it'll be right now, a lot of people behind the scene don't know that how the formula works, but mechanics are either additive to an ability's cost or a multiplier on the ability's cost. It's a multiplier if the stronger the ability, the stronger the card, the more value that ability has. It's additive if it's in a situation where it doesn't matter how strong the card is. The ability strength is always going to be the same. Anyways, that being said, Blitz could have been something that was a multiplier, not just on beckon, but a multiplier on the attack as well.
Yeah.
But we don't have abilities that are multiplier on two different elements in the formula.
Yes.
Yeah, the formula thing. Eventually, I think it's a fun one. I don't know if we'd ever break that down. Like, how would you feel about breaking that down in front of the community?
We'll break it down, and then we'll be like, now that we've broken it down, we're starting a
revamp. Flip the table. Yeah. No, I think that would have been a really interesting way of approaching Blitz if it was a Blitz beckon that also became a multiplier or onto with the attack ability. But that being said, we are where we are now. I wouldn't go back and like errata the old cards.
No.
But yeah, it's interesting. I like that. Yeah, so it's actually really interesting. When I first started designing cards, there's a very thin line between techniques and spells.
Yes.
Like, very thin line. If we look at, is there a card that's identical as both a technique and a spell? There really isn't, is there? There is one coming out, but I can't think of one right now.
I'm trying to think of one right now. No. No. I don't think there is.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, if we look at the band list.
Yes, if we look at the band list, correct. No.
Gus versus Hydroblast.
Hydroblast was a technique? Yeah, it was a technique. Yeah, you're right.
Actually, not technically. It was a spell that cost energy, because that's exactly what I'm trying to dictate here, is that there's a very thin line between the two. You take the card and you make it cost energy. It's a technique. You make it cost aura. It's a spell. If there wasn't a cost difference, if you had to pay aura on both spells and technique, there would literally be no difference between them, except for flavor. But besides that, there's functionally no difference between them. So now, are we actually saying that there's a very little difference between summons and spells besides the body? Is that really the only difference between the two?
So the important thing to look at when you're comparing a spell and a technique to a summon, and specifically we're not talking about Blitz, because Blitz breaks this rule, is that a summon does not usually activate right away.
That's
so
true.
You are
Okay.
investing into it so that it will do damage multiple times.
That's the difference. It's the investment versus the immediate.
Yes.
Okay. It's silly.
Two questions were stated. Steve said gust and shoulder throw. No, those are completely different cards. One's 5G, 4G.
Yeah.
Steve-O said, will we see Blitz counter cards? So something along the lines of prevent Blitz on target summon. It's possible.
Yeah. I think something that needs to be explored are always cards that are like a cog restricts for against summons.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's not in the game right now, right? There's no the closest thing you get, and it's very uncommon to ever happen, but you can shut down certain summons. Like Tadia Jin's ability is a cast ability, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So you can shut down that. And wait, no, is it? I'm pretty sure actually now that
pacify, or is it
actually that's not the issue. I think it is. I think it does say target champion. I'm gonna pull up my binder.
I'm racing you. I'm using the Genesis website.
Negate target cast ability played by a target in shutdown's awareness. Yes, you can shut down a summon. You can shut down Necrolich's trigger ability. I closed the book. There's the dramatic effect. I closed the binder. So, yes, that's the closest thing we have to being able to, like, really negate against summons. But I think having a bigger awareness, something that can actually negate target trigger ability played by target summon at, like, 4G or something like that. But besides that, like, Like that's something I would like to see explored in the game for sure.
The thing I would say about that for the players, it's very hard, and this has to do with ethical game design, to fit such a narrow card when it's specific. So like if a card was just saying negate a blitz, if it just said negate a blitz effect, it's really hard to justify putting that card into a set.
Yeah.
It's taking away from a lot of other potentials that a lot of people can use. That's one specific instance. That's only good versus blitz decks.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, that's just going to go into sideboards. Now, that being said, I've asked it, hey, I want more cards in my set so I can make just sideboard cards. But that's a different issue.
Yeah. Like, we could talk about that a little bit. Like, it's a very interesting topic because let's take a card. What's the best sideboard card right now? Revenge of the Phoenix?
Revenge of the Phoenix is generally,
okay.
I would say.
So let's say you're putting 4 Revenge of the Phoenixes into your sideboard. Well, and the thing is about the sideboard is that because it's not part of your main deck, it's really easy to pick that up and bring it from deck to deck, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you have to exchange some sleeves, but if it's really easy to have that as a movable object. So the big issue I have with making cards, expanding the set and creating cards that are more and more niche, is the environmental impact of getting paper, creating this cardboard, and then having that cardboard decay. Like I feel so bad about it right now. And I'll mention this to everyone who's here. I think I put an announcement in one of the Discords. But we got the foil replacement cards. We got the foils that do not curl. But every single foil, or almost every single foil, ended up with scratches on the face of the card. And that's not what you want as a player, right? But we commissioned this. Anyways, so we got the card, we got the paper, we got it printed, we cut it, we painted on it, we cut it, all that stuff. It got shipped to us. All those have an environmental impact. Now we have those cards, nothing we can do with them. Because we can't give them out. We can give them out the replacement. If you want a replacement of your foil that does not curl, but it has scratches on the face of the card, I'll get you that replacement. I'll make that happen. But not as many people are interested in that, right?
We're gonna add it
Excuse me.
the new slot, the scratched foil slot.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's a scratched foil.
Steven's right. Weighted net versus aerial. Weighted net was exactly a card. Actually, a lot of the cards in Rays are designed to be sideboard cards. And that's why when we went to J2, a lot of those cards got downshifted rarity or got omitted because
let's be honest.
Because of the fact that those putting the investment, the environmental impact onto it, it wasn't worth printing those things. I don't like when you see people's collections of TCGs, no matter what, and Genesis is no exception to this, you're going to have a lot of cards you do not play with. They just sit in a pile somewhere, and they probably don't have trade value, so they're just sitting there, right? I want to minimize that as much as possible.
Well, dude, here it is. They get to trade in those cards they don't want, get a scratched foil card set. Trade in value.
Sure. We should have some sort of redemption program for you to get. If you send me a certain amount of cards, then I'll get you a foil that's scratched. But to help those people finish off their foil collections, because I have no other use for these foils, right? So
yeah,
trying to figure that out, right? Like, how do we give value, and then how do we also give value to the players? We want to make sure that if you're putting in how much is it for a boost pack? $5.50, something like that. $5.50, $6.
$5.50 usually.
Yeah, if you're paying $5 to $5.50 for a boost pack, then I want that money to be converted into value. I don't want you to get that boost pack, open it up, and be like, that sucks. Could have got myself a $5 footlong. Well, Subway doesn't have those anymore, but I want to make sure that players walk away with things. Anyways, that all being said, yeah, expanding the set sizes. We've done the 130, I think, is our biggest set. 140 with J2, maybe.
I don't remember the number, to be honest.
I can pull it up again. 153 for J2. And Origins is roughly around that space. How do you feel now that you've been working in a smaller set size? Do you like the smaller set sizes? Do you
always want more, Sid?
But do you think there's a good balance in that?
That's the awkward part, right? Like if you design specifically sideboard cards, you almost can't put them at the common slot because you don't really want them to be coming so often that it ruins drafts. Like they're just these undraftable cards, and this happens in Magic all the time. There's these same set of cards always are the last cards that you're just forced to pick up at the end.
Yep.
And you really can't put them at the rare slot either. So your only spot is the uncommon slot. So it's like, for me, it's like they almost need their own slot. Let's get back to 18 card packs, Sid. That's what I'm talking about.
There are the commons, uncommons, rares, the sideboard cards, the weird niche cards that only work for certain deck combos.
We'll just call them the JC cards. They'll do the JC.
Steven said they're not scratched, they're textured. They could be part of organized play. You know what? That's not a terrible thing. They could be part of organized play. That actually is a really, really good point. Trying to see if there's Necro pre-nerfed. Steve says, I'll trade an Alpha Bolt Shot for a full set of scratch foils. We'll talk. But yeah, like these are the type of topics that I think about all the time. It's like, how do you balance? It's a balance between creating a good booster pack experience, creating a product that we can fund, right? That we have the cash flow to be able to produce it, but then also something that has the correct environmental impact. I don't want to get to a point that, like, you know, there was a big hubbub about plastic straws and all these other things. I don't want that attention turned on to the TCG community at some point because of how absurd it is. It's already kind of absurd, especially when you look at the packaging for some of this product. It does get really crazy, and that's something as every time I talk to our manufacturers, it's something that always comes to my mind. So that's one of the reasons why I like these very lean sets. And then the other thing I like about the lean sets is, as long as we spend the right, like we design well enough, then every card has value, right? Creating cards in there to fill out some sort of criteria that is misunderstood, that always ends up with fluff in your set that I don't think the players appreciate. Oh, don't tell Will. I won't tell Will. All right. We've been touching on foils. I know you and I have had a lot of offline conversations about this. Let's make a public conversation about it. Pros, cons, and other options. What are the pros about having foils in TCG? Because I'm still not 100% sold that foils...
People love foils. We're magpies. We like the shiny. That is the answer. We want the shiny. We need the shiny.
Is it that necessary in the game that, like, I know we put it in there, and in a lot of ways, I feel like I caved in to peer pressure by putting foils into the game.
I think there. I'm gonna be honest. I think there's a little regret because our foils didn't come out perfect. If the foils came out perfect, I don't think you'd have as much, like, feel like you caved in.
It's... I don't know how much, especially when I hear people that they're like, I don't play with my foils. And then I'm just like, why? Why did we make them? I don't understand. I don't understand people who don't use their precious things. It's weird for me, right? I was a person who always used my foils. Like, if I got them, that was the point of getting them, is to beat someone with my foil. And like,
Yeah.
if I had the same creature, to say I had the behemoth, the foil version, and non-foil, and I played the foil one and it died, and then later on in the game I drew a non-foil one, I would beckon it and then swap it with the one in the discard pile, and then have the foil one on the table. Like,
Our biggest issue here is that our current foil line, they're so curly that you can't play with them without no.
but the foil champions, I don't see anyone play with the foil champions. Ah, I made a good point. I made a good point. And it's not like you got a short supply. Like, some people, yes, they only got one copy of the foils. But there are a lot of people who got several copies of their foils and still don't play with them.
I play with the anime cards, so I can't really. I don't know. That that's what I play with. So I don't know.
Steven says, I agree with Sid. Form follows function. Yes, someone agrees with me. That's good to know. I'm not alone. Head to tails, not necessary but enjoyable as a collector. I'm that's talking about foils. I get that. I'm trying to think, like, is there something around my room that I collect? I have like letters and stuff like that. Okay, I do have one card here that is a collection piece. Let me take it out of its sleeve. It's the Liliana of the Dark Realms. But what happened was, this is when I was living in Seattle, and I got to meet Leslie on a regular basis. She used to make a lot of money commissioning the extending the artwork, like getting rid of the blackboard. So this is the only reason it's a collector. But if I played the game and this was something that was like standard, I would play with it. I'm not someone who's like, I just set collection stuff aside. But
what is spot foiling, Jeffrey? I understand, but for everybody else watching,
did I miss something?
Jeffrey said spot foiling would be better, like Flesh and Blood or the upcoming Star Realms.
Is that the etch foiling type of thing?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I'd love to know. So yeah, okay.
KCG Game says he would use a foil champion if he had one.
Yo, Casey, send me a message. I'll see what I can do for you.
We're gonna send you a foil, but now you have to always play with the foil champion.
Yes,
when you win the championships, you have to give it back to Sid, because Sid, there's a claim in the contract that if you win the championship, you have to give your champion.
Yeah, is this my binder? This is my binder of signed cards that I have. And then the first one I got in here is signed by Steve-O from when he won the championship. Yeah.
Jeffrey says it's not etched.
Oh, okay. I think we missed a comment. Steven, we not only love the shinies, but we love the unique looking shiny. Not only is a full card shiny, sometimes a shiny that emphasizes an awesome effect or item on a card. Stuff shows foil. Oh, so kind of like the Pokemon foiling, where like maybe not the Pokemon itself wouldn't be foiled, but its background is, or vice versa. Yeah, there are definitely other type of foiling options that we're looking into. We're also trying to find something that's the most cost effective, and the more uniform the foiling process is across all of the cards, then the cheaper it is and easier it is for the manufacturers to handle it. The more unique cases you put in, the more manpower has to go into organizing, sorting, and dealing with the product, and that can cause delays and backlogs, especially during COVID. We are learning a lot about the manufacturing process. Alex can attest to that. It's a lot of things have changed because of COVID, and we don't get the opportunity to just when we have a running list of everything that went wrong with all previous print runs. And it was funny because with beta, it was just one thing. Welcome to JLR, one thing. Raise, there was a good chunk of things. JLR second edition, there was a good chunk of things. And a lot of this has to do with, one, doing new things that we didn't do before. So in Welcome to JLR, we had the foils. That was a new process. And what other new thing did we do? Foiling. Epics were old.
Different backs.
Different backs, yes. And also having doing the print sheets in a different style, because before they're treated as one big sheet. Now they're treated as two halves printed on one big sheet. Anyways, it's all technical, confusing stuff. So the more new things you try out, the more room, the higher the risk is, right? And then on top, even if you do a test run, you won't figure out the issues until you start running it in bulk, right? It's like, yeah, there's just so many things to think about. So with Raise, there was a bunch of new stuff that we had done. For J2, there were a bunch of new things. These all come with risks. That's why moving forward, our hope is with the reprint of J2, we're doing some things new. I think only one or two things new, not a whole lot. And then with Origins, we have one or two things new. And each set, we're going to add a few new things so that we can improve ourselves. But each new thing we add adds risks, right? Yeah. We don't want to stay stagnant, but at the same time, we want to minimize our risks. Wow, there are a bunch of comments coming in.
Speaking of, there's a bunch. So he was saying the foils, I pulled up a link to show you later. But it's more so of a highlighted effect. It's like bordering of the art, like certain art, you spoil certain sections around the art.
Yeah.
And then he said, speaking of champions, maybe we could get a custom set of chibi-style champions.
Send me those artworks. Send me those artworks.
I responded with, if only we had a chibi art for each champion.
Yeah. Send me those artworks. I would love to get those done as like work in combination with you of doing something special with that. So chat, send me an email. How do I throw my email address up on the screen? You know my email address. It's everywhere. Yeah. Steve also had a thing. For me, having a signed copy of a card, whether it's from an artist or designer, is more appealing than a foil, but a signed foil out of this world. So that was actually something that I've thought about. Yeah, we have.
When we went down.
Yeah, we have some cool ideas in the process for that. I know something that Argent Saga did this, which is really cool. Have I ever shown photos of, to people about the plates, how the printing plates look like? But what they did is they took the printing plate and then chopped it up into individual cards and then put the parts of the printing plate into the packs so you could get those. And I don't know if it was like a box topper in the booster box or if it was inside the packs. It was a cool concept, but I like the idea of giving more of those mementos, things that are one of a kind. So even getting a foil, like getting a foil angel, there are multiple foil angels out there, right? But getting something that is literally just a one of a kind, that is really cool. I know Steve-O has some stuff that I regret giving to him because it was a one of a kind. He has the black printing plate for Welcome to Jalar, I think it was. And I knew I was going to regret giving it to him, but I was like, you know what? He's been such a huge supporter. If it wasn't for him, I don't know if this company would have ever taken off the ground. So I don't know what's making that noise. I think my wife's phone is chiming in the background. So I apologize for that.
That's why I love my monstrosity card sheet I took from J2.
That's true.
For everybody else, there was a sheet that they were going to throw out that they somehow printed two forms on top of each other. So you have like a necrolich and a gilded stag on top of each other.
Yeah, that sometimes those unique things are really cool, and that's what I want to put into the auctions as well. Get some of those pieces that you literally won't be able to get anywhere else, and once you get it, you're the only one who has them, right? Because we'll be putting those some of those plates up, especially the ones that are really pristine. I want to put those plates up into the auction. But there are other things that are just super awesome. Some old promos, some signed cards, things that you may not be able to get your hands on anymore. Like the anime champions, right? Those are pretty hard to come by these days. Okay, so we dug into this, other options. I would love to hear from the community. Are there other things that you would want to see us explore beyond what current games are doing? Because, you're limited in a way. You have to use the cardboard. You have to make it into a card. But are there other options of things that could be cool collector pieces? I saw someone who had this like. It was you had to collect all 9 pieces of a giant black lotus type of thing, and it was just the same card broken up into 9 pieces, and you had to collect them all. And then if you going back to Overpower had actually mission cards, and the mission cards were printed on the same card stock as hockey cards, so they were thicker. They had the sharp corners, and they had different functionality in the game. And I like that because you got one in every single pack, so you couldn't figure out if a pack had it or not. Every single pack had one. And since they were stiffer, it also meant that the cards inside were less likely to get damaged. And they were just a completely different card type. So I actually thought at a time to do the champions that way. Have the champion cards as the thicker hockey card type of stock, so they're not likely to get shuffled into your deck. And having the sharp corners mean that they'll just stand out a little bit more in your collection.
Yeah. Well, why not have just sharp corner cards? What's the benefit of having rounded cards over sharp corner?
It was for the times when you shuffled decks without sleeves. That's why that was there. Because if you look at it, it really started with bicycle cards. Old playing cards did have corners, but then they started rounding them because it made shuffling a lot easier. I'm sure there are other reasons, but that was always the reason I was told. And so, yeah, I honestly, if we could get rid of the round corners, oh my goodness, it would save us so much grief. That's how much grief it would save us. Alex would fall over in his chair. How do you feel, the community? How would you feel if the game did not have rounded corners? Like, is it the end of the world?
Yu-Gi-Oh has straight corners.
Huh?
Yu-Gi-Oh has straight corners.
That's true.
And
it'll fit into the sleeves better.
If it's about sleeves, our game for tournament play requires sleeves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of our rules.
Yeah. It'll fit into sleeves better, and sleeves are less likely to get damaged because every inch of the sleeve will get full, right? So your sleeves will get damaged less. What's this arena idea? You could have 30 collectible arena spots cards that are unique. Nice. It's a build your own arena type of thing. It's like those the RPG board games like Descent, where you get the little blocks that you put together to build your arena. That would be awesome. You get your arena pieces inside the booster packs.
Aaron says we need rounded corners. I mean, I want to ask, why do we need rounded corners?
Yeah, that's the thing. Why? Just because everyone else does it.
We're wasting paper every time we have to cut a corner
unrounded corners
on
look, feel amateur. Now since the big two have rounded corners. Yeah, it's a question that always goes into place. Like, I think this isn't just an us issue. It's an issue with every startup, every company out there. Is when do you stick with the status quo and when do you break away? When do you challenge what the industry leaders do and when do you just follow suit? There are a lot of times where we have this debate over and over again with the community where I say, okay, just because Magic does something one way doesn't mean we have to do it. But then in a few days later, I'm like, Magic does this, so that's why we do this. Like, yes. It's terrible because there are a lot of times where you have to figure out where you challenge things and where do you just fall in line. And so the question becomes, do we need those rounded corners? Throw those rounded corner cutoffs into the packs like confetti. You know what? People have opened up packs of J2 where they do get a little like slit of paper or something like that because the cut was a bit off, or not the cut, the trim wasn't perfect, so that thing didn't fall off of the card and it just found its way into the booster pack. So they're going through the booster pack, they're like, oh, what's this? It's like, it's a surprise. No, that'd be hilarious, Jeffrey, if we just, opened up the boost pack and a bunch of confetti fell out. Glitter. People would hate us so much. But yeah, so those are things that I thought about. Going to a thicker card stock is also something that's been on my mind a lot. People have mentioned it, especially Flesh and Blood players coming into Genesis. Have mentioned that the Genesis cards feel thinner than Flesh and Blood, and they do. We found this out recently too. I asked my printers, I was like, why aren't we using the thicker cardstock? It's like, I don't know. I'm like, all right, let's start using the thicker cardstock. So we're looking into that for not for the J2 reprint, but for future reprints or future products, using a thicker cardstock. So we're getting there. We're getting there. We didn't know. That was the other thing. So many of those stripes. Steva. Magic had to have Deckmaster on the back of every card. I think a change in card back has to be handled between worlds. So I actually told Alex about this, but we've mentioned Overpower a lot. It is my go-to game that I played probably not the most, but the most obsessively. Overpower between sets used to change the back of their cards. So the first 3 sets, or I think it was Origins or Original, something like that. Power Surge and Mission Control all had the same card back, but Mission Control had a different finish on the cards. So they felt different. You could see them that they were different. And then Mission Control went back to the original finish on the cards. Then DC came out and it had a different card back. Then IQ came out and that had a different card back. Then what are there? Like 5 other sets. There were so many different card backs. This was a mess because in those days card sleeves didn't exist. The only ones that existed were the penny plastics. Yeah. So playing the game was a nightmare because people could cheat so easily in that game. I think with things like what Dragon Shield's coming out with the new sleeves, the ones that are like colored matte on the outside but black on the inside, so there's literally no way of telling what the card inside the sleeve is. Yeah. With more sleeves coming out like that, then it is definitely doable to change the back of the cards. I don't see why not. Yeah. Now, if we want to, that's a different question, but it's definitely doable. I know that it's come up by some of our artists about changing the back of the cards. So it's a conversation to be had in the future. But I wouldn't change it for J-Lara. I wouldn't change it for J-Lara. All right. Another topic?
Up to you. I have a 7:59 on our clock here.
Oh, it is. Okay. Well, that should just wrap things up then. Oh, man. How... I would love to know from the people who are watching, how do you feel about this more conversation style compared to just having like a single topic and digging into that? How did you feel about this live stream? Let me know because we're trying to figure out what works best. How do we engage with the community and still have a good conversation going back and forth, especially while there's still just the 2 of us. And then we were talking about this before, but we wouldn't be opposed to having guests onto the show. So if you're interested to ever join us in one of these conversations, then let us know. I would love to have you on for an episode. But I guess that's everything for today. Any last thoughts, Alex?
I thought it was a very good episode. A lot of people communicated a lot of questions from the audience too. Yeah. That being said, you did promise them stuff in the stream in the video this morning. Oh
yeah. We'll get that next time.
Yeah, that next time.
Next time.
I'll come next week.
Yeah. Oh. Wait. We have a thing for a championship, right?
Yeah. We can just say it now.
Yeah. So November 20th, championship.
Yeah, November 20th, championship.
Where our goal is to host it in Toronto, downtown Toronto, but we're still trying to lock in that venue. We are needing to know who's interested in joining. So if you are interested in coming out for the championship, make sure you get that information to me, Alex, Chris, whoever your touch point is at Haunted Castle, so we can start compiling those numbers. The more accurate the number, the better, because then we can plan out the timetable closer, make sure we got special treats for everyone who shows up. So all those things. But we're getting pretty close to that. Yes. Having everything
we will have an Eventbrite ticket thing set up at some point. We just can't. We don't want to set it up until we officially have the contract. Locked out.
Yeah.
The moment we do that, then they'll be like, oh no, we can't do it that day.
Yeah. Like the thing is, the having the location and also making sure we have a good understanding of how we're planning to accept players into the space. Like, are we going to be how our ticket structure is going to be. Sorry, convoluted way of saying that. So all that kind of stuff. But if you're in the States, make sure you're looking into your passport, because I've heard a lot of people are having issues with trying to get their passport renewed. So if you can make it, let us know, especially if you're traveling. Let us know as soon as possible so we can make sure you got your ticket, you got your space reserved for the event. And for everyone else, yeah, already Darren, Jeffrey, Steve-O. It should be a good group of people. It's going to be a lot of fun. The space looks beautiful. I can't wait.
Hopefully next week we can go into all the details. I'm hoping. I'm really hoping by next week we can finally go into all the details with you guys.
Yeah. It's just getting everything locked in. It's such a nuisance. All right. 30 minutes drive, unfortunately, is not the type of traveling I'm looking at. I'm thinking about people coming in from the States or from a different province. But that being said, it would be good to see you. I don't think I've actually met Jeffrey in person. So, or have I? Have we met in person? Anyways, I'm going to throw up the closing screen. The awesome bolt chart artwork. All right. Have a good night, everyone. We'll talk again next week.
Location next week, Jeffrey. Next week.
And yeah, vlogs in the morning, live stream next week. Everything's awesome. Everything's good. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Have a good night. Bye.